Welcome to New England Learns. Used to be called New England ISTE, but we have become a new organization called New England Learns. And this is the first night of our free webinar series for the season 25-26. New England Learns is working as a partner with New Hampshire STE. New Hampshire Supporting Technology Using Educators is their new name, and they're a partner of the International Society for Technology and Education and ASCD, who still has actually not changed their name, but they have certainly merged. We changed our name as a request by ISTE and ASCD. That's why we have become New England Learns. We're glad that you're here with us. We're working towards nonprofit status as we continue to fulfill our mission. This series is designed to provide free professional development to educators in New England states and beyond. We invite and welcome everyone interested to attend our webinars. We share the recordings widely, and you are most welcome to share the links that you get as well. If you're on social media, we use the hashtags and handles NELearns and NELearns webinars and Forward to School. And you'll see those on a slide at the end of the presentation tonight. My name is Gabby Richard Harrington. I'm the president of New England Learns, and I'll be your host tonight. My good friend Sheila Adams is here, and she'll be helping me moderate. Everyone present at the live session will get a certificate of attendance. All who've registered will be sent links as well, whether you're here or not tonight. And if you're listening to the recording, you can complete a quick exit ticket with a trigger that will trigger an email that includes an attendance certificate and the links. Again, all of our links can be shared widely. Today is November 12th, 2025, and I'm pleased to be sharing another webinar focused on AI, unlocking the magic of AI in your elementary classroom. Debbie Tannenbaum, I met through. So, whoops, are we seeing part of the screen?
Now
Yes.
we're just seeing my icon. I guess the thing you
Okay,
have.
excellent. That's a good thing.
Okay.
So thank you, Debbie, for an insightful presentation. I learned a lot of things, and I consider that an amazing webinar when I've learned a lot of things. So I'm very excited
Thank you.
about that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing many new tools with us. Sheila, thanks for moderating with me as always. We now have over 95 webinars archived as part of New England ISTE. Mostly this webinar will be archived under New England Learns for the first time. You should get your links in about 2 hours. Our next webinar is on Wednesday, December 3rd, the 40th anniversary of Critical Skills in the Classroom with Laura Thomas from Antioch, New England. And I'm looking forward to that. Should be really wonderful. We're going to raffle her book. And then Wednesday, December 10th, coordinating efforts to drive powerful AI adoption with our friend Beth Holland and her former group that used to be called Learning Accelerator. They've also changed their name. I guess this is the year of everybody changing their name. They are now called Full Scale Learning. And Dr. Beth Holland, Ashley Fellows, and Michael Ham, who's been with us before, will come and talk to us about that. Check our website for more information, nelearns.org. And if you have suggestions for speakers, please always let me know that. NELearns, hashtag NELearns webinars, and hashtag Forward to School, because we can never go backwards. The back to school, I would love to change that always to Forward to School. Those of you who know me certainly understand that. To earn a certificate of completion, if you're watching the recording, there's an archive page. Choose any of our webinars, then go to the exit ticket, tell us which webinar you watched, and answer 3 questions, something you learned, something you still have a question about, etc. If I can't answer the question, I will go back and ask our presenter to answer your question for you. Watch for new webinars. They'll all be on our new website. And thank you for attending tonight. We're really glad that you're here. And again, share the links, share the links, share the links. So that's what I've got for you tonight. Thank you, everyone. We're very excited to be on a new path with New England Learns. And we are excited also to tell you that ISTE is going to be in Boston in 2027. So we're looking for ways to work with them and welcome ISTE ASCD here to New England. So thanks very much for coming tonight. ISTE certified educators, and I invited her immediately to come and do a webinar for us. She's recognized as a 2024 ISTE 20 to Watch Award winner, an ASCD Emerging Leader, an ISTE Certified Educator, an ISTE Community Leader, and a VATLL Impact winner, which I hope she tells us what it exactly means, but I think it's a Virginia something. Debbie's also an author, blogger, and featured speaker. She offers schools and districts a wealth of expertise, advocating for pedagogy first, and then working to transform learning experiences by using technology tools. She loves to empower elementary educators with practical strategies, innovative ideas, and insightful guidance for leveraging technology to amplify student success. Find her and invite her to your district at tannenbaumtech.com. Welcome, Debbie.
Thanks so much for having me. And just like you in our state, we were not allowed to keep our VASCD name. And so in Virginia, we became VATLL, the Virginia Association
Ah,
of Teaching, Learning, and Leading. Though ironically, VISTE, our state organization, did not need to change their name because there was no I. So just to give a little bit of background,
that's
I'm
the
going to
same
go,
with New Hampshire. They were New
it's,
NHST.
yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put the link for the participant handout in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started because I have a lot I want to share. Just as we get started, I'm going to just go show you quickly. This will make a forced copy. And when you go in here, I love how the computer decides to be slow now. You'll see a couple of different things. One is that you'll see those key links in the beginning. Those are the links that are most important. You'll also see as we go through today's session that there is a chart for you to do some note taking in here and a place for you to do your call to action. So that's all to use during today's session. So welcome to Unlocking the Magic of AI in Your Elementary Classroom. Like Gabby said, I'm Debbie Tannenbaum, and you can follow me on social media at Tannenbaum Tech. Gabby did such a great job introducing me. I'm just going to bring a couple of other things up. I'm very excited to be UDL certified as well. Universal Design for Learning is something I'm super passionate about. In addition to that, I am an Adobe Creative Innovator. We're going to talk about Adobe today, so I want to make sure I highlighted that. And my first book, Transform Techie Notes to Make Learning Sticky, is on the page. And then I contributed to a book called Amplifying Instructional Design. And I am working on book number 2. More details to come on that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Today's session is going to be made of 5 mini chunks to kind of help us really look at AI very holistically. So we're going to start today with a welcome and a foundation, really talking about what AI is in the elementary setting. Then we're going to spend some time talking about AI as far as UDL and differentiation. I'm going to share 2 tools with you that I really think are wonderful, and they're both free, Padlet's TA and Ludia. Then we're going to switch gears and do a little bit on the student side and talk about Adobe Express. Now, the first 3 sections are going to be a lot of me sharing and demoing and you getting the chance to take some notes on that handout. And in section 4, we're going to spend time giving you about 10 minutes to have some explore. So at 7:45, if I have not switched over, I'm going to make myself stop so that you have 10 minutes to explore. And then we'll finish up with a reflection and a call to action. So here are outcomes for tonight. We're going to really think about identifying practical applications of AI in an elementary classroom setting. We're also going to talk about how AI can support differentiation, universal design for learning, and personalized learning. This is something I'm super excited about, and I do a lot in my everyday work. We're going to explore how AI tools can foster student creativity. It's probably one of my students' favorite things to kind of look at. And then in addition, you're going to get some ready to use resources that will help you integrate AI into your teaching. So with that being said, we're going to do a little grounding to make sure that we all get in the right frame of mind. And what I'd love for you to do right now is I'm going to give you a countdown. And what I want you to do in the chat is write what words come to your mind when you hear AI in education. And then when I count down all the way down to 1, we'll put them in like a waterfall. I'm going to give you a minute or so to write something in there. and then I'll let you know when we'll all put them in. Sheila, you're ahead of the game. Okay, go ahead and put them in. Okay, efficiency, unknown, teacher productivity, assisted tech, all of these are really great things. And what I'm hoping is that by the time we finish this session tonight, you'll have even more ideas of ways that you can use it. So let's get started. So when we think about AI, and how it can contribute to elementary classrooms, I think it's really important for us to do a lot of that modeling, and when I talk to my students about it, I'm a lot of times talking about their smart tools that help us learn and create. Our students are not allowed to use AI, with the exception of the fact we have some programs that have AI built in my district. So that's really important I always put that out there. And we want to make sure our students are really prepared for the future. Right now we're in a stage of AI where it's changing so quickly, but our students need to be prepared to understand how to use these things. And so tonight towards the end, we'll spend some time talking about resources you can use to help build that literacy as well. And obviously, when we're talking about AI, we want to make sure we keep certain things under consideration. Privacy is a huge issue. When I work with educators, I make sure that I really promote using tools that protect privacy. And if we're using a tool where we're not sure, we're not putting in personal identifiable information, we're giving more generalities. And we want to make sure our students really understand. I mean, if you've been in a classroom recently, we think about something like cell phones. We didn't really teach our students how to use them appropriately, and now we're banning them. We can't ban AI. It's not going to be a realistic expectation as we get into the future. So we have to teach our kids how to do these things appropriately. So, what is AI? This is something that I saw, and this is not new, but I think it's really important. It's a tool to help teachers. It's not a replacement. Your lesson plans are your recipe, but you still need a chef. You need a teacher to make that recipe come alive. You've got to look at what's coming out, make sure it's reliable. And yes, AI has become more and more reliable, but every once in a while you'll look at something and you'll be like, that's not so right. You have a plan, it's going to save you time, but you still need to be part of that. And the graphic that's over there on the right is a graphic that I made with an AI tool called Napkin AI, which unfortunately now is starting to charge people, but they didn't when they first came out. Um, but really thinking about the fact is that we can use the AI tools and our teacher expertise, and we're no longer alone. I joke all the time that using some of these tools, they're like my virtual assistant. They've helped me to become better because they're helping me to think of things in different ways. So this past year at ISTE, Richard Kulatis talked about the idea of being an AI ready graduate. And so when he shared this, I thought that this was really important. I think that not all of our schools are necessarily ready for this right now, but I think we need to think about all the ways we can potentially use AI. So some examples is that idea of being a learner. Can we use AI to develop goals, create plans for learning new skills, get feedback? These are all things I think our students will be able to do, but I know as a learner, I'm using it for these things now. It's really important. I'm working on a project with my fourth graders where they have to show how government helps solve people's problems. And using AI has really kind of helped me think it through and make sure that I'm better meeting my students' needs. We also want them to be a researcher, that they use AI to investigate topics, claims, and compare sources of information. I remember when I first started teaching, we had things like Ask Jeeves, then we went to Google, but we have such a much bigger data set that we can use to get information and learn. And so we need to teach our students how to do those things. We also want to make sure we help our students to be a synthesizer. There is so many ways we can use AI to do this. I think about something like a Notebook LM where we can turn any content into a podcast. I think about, how we can make flashcards, we can make quizzes, how we can put something in an AI and change the level. We can use these tools to help best meet the needs of our students, but we still have to be there to make sure that everything that comes out is appropriate for our kids. It's also we can also use AI to be a storyteller. One of the things that came out, I guess, now it's been a month or so, on Gemini is a storybook. We can use these things to help us better illustrate things to our students. Like I mentioned earlier, that Napkin AI helped me make graphics that I use with my students. We are able to use these things so we can work smarter, not harder. But I also like the next part is being a connector. I can't think of how many times I've used AI to make sure that I'm giving my students what they need and their families. The school I work in is 40% language minority and 25% English language learners. AI and tools like Talking Points or in Canva or in Adobe Express has enabled me to reach out to families in new and really exciting ways. And then we can also use it as an ideator. That always makes me say it twice. I have to be honest, it's one of the ways I love using AI the most. And I've been trying to model that for my students as well, using it as a brainstorming partner, asking it to give me, a list of ideas and then figure out which ideas are going to spark that next idea for me. To me, like I said, I a lot of times view it almost like it's a virtual assistant. So that's all of them together. I always like to take time in this presentation to show that because this is where our students are going to end up being. Now, we might not be there now. Some of us might be there, but our students might not be there, but that's where we need to get them. I know that Gabby, Sheila, I don't know if is Sheila a certified educator too? We spent a lot, no, okay. Well, I know Gabby and I spent a lot of time getting our ISTE certification. And those are all really important proficiencies that we need to have. Um, but these are going to be new proficiencies that we're going to need to focus on as well. And Sheila, I can't recommend it enough. Best PD I've ever done. So let's now switch gears a little bit and talk about it in action versus just talking about it more abstractly. So one of the things that's really great about using AI is that we can customize those learning environments for our diverse students' needs. Giving us a variety of reading levels. I had a teacher last year, his students were really into Pokemon, and he was able to customize the curriculum so that it matched their Pokemon interests, and it really helped their engagement tremendously. We can look at different formats, like when we were talking of, like when I was mentioning earlier, the idea of, turning something into a podcast, turning something into a video. We don't have to do we can give our students those choices and it doesn't take us a huge amount of time to do so. And we can also make sure we use these things to help meet our students' instructional needs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a couple of examples in a minute. So if you go to the handout, and this is here for you if you'd like to use it, it gives you a little chart. So to give you, write down the tool to maybe talk about what AI is there and maybe write a classroom idea. A lot of times when we go to learning at night, our brains are already pretty full. And if we don't write things down, sometimes it doesn't end up going into our toolbox the next day. So with that, let's start with our first tool. And the first tool I'm going to share with you is Padlet TA. So I'm going to go ahead right now. I think I linked it. Yes, I did. And I'm going to go ahead and show you and give you a little bit of a tour. One of the cool things about Padlet TA is it is free. It's unlike Padlet that does have it. And if you log in, it will keep all of your history, which is kind of cool. Some of the things that are really nice about this is there's a lesson plan generator. You can do multimedia presentations. It's getting better. When it first started, it wasn't as good. You can do class ideas. You can make rubrics. You can make worksheets, multiple choice. I'm not as big of a fan of the coloring sheet. Change reading passages, but they've recently added a whole bunch of these great activities called interactive activities. And they weren't there a couple of months ago. And you can make flashcards, you can do matching. These are activities that you can create that when your students do them, they're an interactive experience. So there's sorting, fill in the blanks. So those are really, really great things that you can use. But I'm going to be honest, I'm all about making sure that I'm using my time as wisely as I can. And to be honest, the ones that I end up using the most are the ones at the bottom because they're the ones that are just easy to use and ready to go. Like for today's session, I gave you a teach link that comes from here. The name picker, I'm going to just highlight because I think I really love this one. And I'm going to click on the example so you can see it as an example. And of course, so you put in information in here and it enables you to use that as a name picker much faster than going to a wheel of names or anything like that. You can populate that in, you can allow repeated picks. So pretty cool, easy one. The other one I really like in here is the smart groups. Smart groups is a great thing. You can put the names of your students in and some details, nothing too personally, identifiable. First names are fine. You can ask it to make groups and balance the groups. I'll never forget, I was in a second grade classroom and a teacher was using Wheel of Names to make her partners. That took an extraordinary amount of time. But with something like this, I can make sure that certain kids aren't together who I might not want together. I can make sure that the groups are balanced and it's super easy to use. So that's another one I really like using. In addition, you can make a QR code. Now, I know that's not something a lot of tools have, but it is absolutely something you can use. Couple of things I want to point out about this resource, and I'm going to click on the lesson plan just to kind of show you, is that and click on one of the samples to see, is that you can add in a file, you can bring something in from your Google Drive, you can add a YouTube video or a link. So if we're talking about characteristics of digital learners, which is what's up here, and then I click generate, it's going to give me a lesson plan. This one's for ninth grade, which obviously is not elementary. But what I want to make sure that I point out is that when it's done, there is an export feature. And so it used to be it would only export into a Google Doc, but now it will export into, I believe, other formats as well. I'm going to let it finish going as it's going. But you can see that this might not be your lesson plan, but this is a great place to start if you were using that. And obviously, like I said, just to kind of see how quickly it can do some of that work for you. And it's even giving you differentiation ideas of kind of building on that whole UDL thing. So when you go to
Debbie,
that
can you stop
export,
for a
you can,
sec? There's
yeah.
a question about, you mentioned QR codes, which I think we all know what they are at this point. You're in a brick and mortar school. How do your kids access a QR code? What device do they use? If you give them a QR code, how do they get there?
We've actually been finding QR codes are a little, I use QR codes more for adults than I do for kids.
Okay.
Our elementary in pre-K and kindergarten, our kids have iPads, but then they still have to log in with the QR code. And so we've actually found putting things in Clever, which is what we usually use, is much more easier for our kids. Our kids know how to click on the C to get to Clever, and then we put all of our links through there. This
Thank you.
year, they've been expected for reading to go into Schoology, and that's definitely been a challenge. And with our older kids, we recently, we put our links in Schoology in there as well. Um, we just don't have, we just got devices where they can take pictures, but our kids are used to it at this point. So I feel like we use QR codes like when we have parent things and we want parents to fill out a form and things like that more.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure if you found a good way to do that. Yeah.
No, I wish I had. I've tried so many different things. Um, so what I was sharing was that, you can export it to a Google Doc, to a PDF, to Word. You can even export it to Cami. So there's lots and lots of ways to use something like this. So I always just like to share that because I think it's really important for you to see if if you go and you try these things, you know, even something like this multiple choice that will export into a into Google Forms. And like I said, these interactive activities are super cool. I see so much potential for our students to, look at them, and these are all in beta, but, look at them and figure out how they can best use them. So that's tool number one. And tool number two has some similarities, but some differences. So let's look at tool number two. And then, like I said, you get the opportunity to figure out what tool you want to explore more at the end. So tool number two is Ludia. And Ludia is kind of interesting because Ludia was created by two teachers. And Ludia is an UDL, Universal Design for Learning chatbot. One of the cool things about Ludia, and I'm just going to click on this link so you can see it, is Ludia's really they've done a lot of great work here, providing you with lots of resources. And so those are linked in here. But what Ludia has you do is you put in the subject, you put in your grade level, your learning goals. And when I put stuff into Ludia, I don't put personal identifiable information. We also have access to Gemini at my school. So in Gemini, I'm more likely to put in that personal identifiable information because it's a walled garden. But putting those things in can be super helpful. So just because of time, I'm going to show you one I've already done. This is one for fourth grade. And this is talking about my fourth graders who were struggling with mixed numbers. And so what I did here, and it's kind of a conversation, is I said I have a class of 22 students, 14 are students with disabilities, and 3 are multilingual learners. We're struggling with mixed numbers. I want to point out that while you're here, you see that there's a microphone. You do not need to type. You also have that plus sign here, so you can add things in if you decide to. And so I did that. And what happened now is that Ludia gave me all these suggestions. Now, Ludia is not going to rewrite your lesson plan for you, but it's going to think as another set of eyes and ears. So it's like, okay, this could be a barrier. Let's talk about how it can be a barrier. And so what it does is it talks about a barrier and it talks about how to fix that barrier. And so a very different tool than Padlet, but also really valuable. A lot of times I tell my teachers when universal design for learning is new to them and they don't know where to start, this really helps build your understanding. So I can say, oh, they might struggle with the traditional representation. And one of the things I notice when I use Ludia is Ludia never comes up with something that I would have never thought of. It just comes up with something I wouldn't have thought of as fast. So I think that that's really important to kind of, as you look at this, see, and then it says, okay, which of these options do you want to explore further? And so then I was able to go here and say, okay, I want to help my multilingual learners. What else can I do for my multilingual learners to really support them? And it does keep everything that you do. So it's a cool tool. It always will provide you extra questions. Um, but I love the fact that it's by teachers. And I also love the fact that it has that UDL lens. And UDL went through an update in 2024, and I was shocked how quickly they updated this chatbot to meet the needs of the new guidelines. So that is tool number two. I know it's a cool tool. I learned about it. I was part of an AI cohort and I learned about it. And it's just, I sometimes find that, if you're using a variety of tools, you're also going to see different ones have, things that work versus help in different ways. So with that being said, I'm going to have us pause because we're going to get ready. Like I said, these blocks are short but powerful. So I'd love for you to share either an aha or aha. So either in the chat, share something that clicked for you about using AI for UDL and differentiation, or maybe a question you might still have. Yep, I agree. Yeah, I'm really happy that the guidelines were updated. There's so many things that I find that still have the old guidelines, and the new guidelines are here for a reason. So I agree. Yep, absolutely. And it's funny because, like, I'm right now in my role working as a UDL coach. In my role, my principal has allowed me to do this. So now when I'm going in and doing tech lessons, it's really with a UDL focus. And so I've really been trying to make it small and manageable for my teachers because with the needs we have, we really do need to plan with all in mind. So yeah, UDL can be big, but if we think about it as making sure that um we want to make sure all students can meet the needs, then it's really powerful. And Gabby, you asked about the teachers. I use my teachers know. In fact, I've created gems in Gemini for all of my teachers where I've put in their demographic information and I shared them with my teachers. I want my teachers to see it as a resource. Last Monday, I worked with my specialist team and I showed them how they could do that to better meet their needs of their students. I'm really transparent about it. I do not do my work without using AI because AI makes me a better educator because it helps me think of things I would have never thought of without. So the teachers know, and so many times they're so grateful. And now I have different tech tools that I want to prioritize, and I'll even ask when I use an AI tool, which tech tool would best meet the needs of this lesson and the needs of my learners. And yes, I could come up with that, but it's also nice to have us. A lot of times I'm sitting in my office and it's just me. So that was a great question. So this is one of my favorite parts because now we get to talk about using it with our students. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to switch my screen so that I can go um, into my work because Adobe has some really great things. Let me switch it over so that I can get it. Hopefully it's showing. Adobe has some really great things that it in their Adobe Express for our students that it doesn't have in the personal one. I have both as an innovator, but I want to just show you some of the things that I really value. So right now I'm clicking on this activities tab. And in this activities tab, we're here for elementary school right now. So I'm going to click on upper elementary. This particular program, I really feel like second grade and up is really where I feel is a sweet spot. There are things you can do with our younger kids, but I want you to see all of these guided activities that you can see. And a lot of these are actually, I think all of them are activities that use AI to do things in different ways. And I'm going to pull this dream product one up first because I think it really gives you a long view of it. And one of the things I want to point out is that these activities are made by Adobe, and these activities all have a video. And then in addition to that, they have text where it can read to our students. So it's really great for our students to be able to see those things and work at their own pace. And so, as they're working, they can absolutely look at that and then they can go, okay, well, I'm making a shoe. Well, in this step, I am now going to generate an image. I'm going to add and remove an object. And so they actually get to, play with these things. And when I just clicked on that box right in there, you can see all of these different things that I can now add in. I can insert an object. I can remove an object. I can erase. I can set the background. I have all of these things that I can do as I'm working on them. When you're looking at this, if you ever are like, well, I'm not sure where to go to start, this is actually a newer update. I'm not sure if I like this update, but I liked it better when they were all on the side. I know they were doing it for efficiency, but under our media, you can see there's that generate image here. So that's one of the things that you can absolutely do in here. And so this is, like I said, one example of the activity, and then they can go through this tutorial and learn how to use this. And like I said, that's just one of them. Adobe Express is free for educators, and it will always be free for educators, which is awesome. But like I said, this is every month they have one that's more of like the monthly one. And so you can see, and I'm just showing you a few things like in this one, there's your video, and you can actually create your own plushy animal, plushy pal. And when you click here, one of the things that's really neat about this, and I'm going to click into this, is that they put a lot of these prompts in there so then you can change the things that you want to change. And so I have to be honest, my students love this. And one of the things that's really cool about this is that they have something called a classroom. And with a classroom, what you can do is you can then take your students' work. I'm going to take something from last year. And I can then look at what this is. This is probably my favorite project that they did. So all of my students did a creative self-portrait, and there's a gallery. Well, I can now see every kid's work, and they can see each other's work. Think about how powerful that is. And they can say, well, you got better results than me. How did you get that? And then we're talking about writing and language, really powerful stuff. So I always like to share that. And now they actually have this new thing called galleries where you can actually have the kids respond to each other, not just view each other. But lots of different things in here. And even something as simple as this animated character allows the students to use AI with this. This is probably one of my favorite parts of this program. And my students love it. They pick a character, they put a background in, they choose a size. And if you click this enhanced speech button, no sound that the only sound behind you will be picked up. So if you have a kid sitting against a wall, no other sound will be picked up. And then it creates this video and it uses AI to match the mouth with the character. Probably one of my students' favorite things. They use it for a lot of different things. It's just really cool. Um, and so those are just a couple of the things that are on here. You can build a web page. This is actually brand new. This is the first presentation I've done since they added Adobe Podcast in here. But so many things that our students can do in here, and it's using that AI in a meaningful way to really help our students understand it. It's really important to the people at Adobe that we do those things. And so you'll notice that lots and lots of things in here. They even have, if you're as an educator interested in learning more, they even have an AI course that you can take to show your understanding. So as we're looking, I think that that part's in here. So really something that I think is really powerful for our kids. We want to make sure that we're giving them those opportunities, and the Adobe community is a great place. And like I said, you can always go back to that activities tab and look and see what else you might want to do. They keep adding more and more activities every day. And I think it's the end of this week, is the 12 days of creativity. So there'll be a new cool activity coming out every day. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, I'm going to get out of this tab because I don't need this for the next thing we're going to do. So let's go back to where we were. So what I would love to do now is I want you guys to think about some of the things I just showed you. And I want you to think about a way you might want to use them. So I want you to do an imagine if in the chat. So how could you imagine your students potentially using a tool like Adobe?
I have a question first about the Adobe Express. If students pick a
Sure.
tool that's not already made, like that project you showed first, does it still walk them through step by step? Like if they want to make a site, is there a video of how to do it and walking through
Um,
an open tool?
and it's only it gives them videos in the guided activities, but it's
Okay.
pretty, websites are in a different part than the rest of it. And I really make sure when I'm working with students that just like if I'm using a Wixie or I'm using a book creator, these are all the tools we can use to share our thinking. We kind of go through that same idea.
So a teacher
So
could make that sort of a scaffolded activity by creating that guided activity themselves.
absolutely. And when I do an activity with my students, I've always create a video and then what I call an EDU Rubicon. That's an rubric with icons, to kind of guide them because our students really do need that. And especially in a school, like the one I work at, we want to make sure that things are as visual as possible to make sure that all students can be successful. So yeah, the animated character is amazing. And when you do this with students, if you decide to do this with students, I always have my back, away from them, and then I tell them to be as loud as they can, and I record, and I was like, "Watch," and they're always like, "There's no way that's gonna work," and then I play it, and they're like, "You couldn't hear us at all," and they just love it, and I've used it for other things, like I like to use Desmos or slash Amplify, and they don't really have great speech to text. And so I'll record a video in there and pop it into Amplify as well. So, um, and the kids love the videos. Sometimes I find that those are the videos that the kids actually like the best. I'd much rather see the character talk than me. So, okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start to preview the all of the things that you'll get to look at in our last 10 minutes. So what I've done is I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that you'll have a chance to pick from. It's interesting because the first time I did this session, um, there weren't as many when I looked at resources, all of the resources were grades 6 through 8. By the next time I did this session, which was like a few months later, now I'm seeing grades 3 through 5 and even a couple K to 2 resources. So some of the resources that I just wanted to highlight, AI in education has some really great lessons for grades 3 through 5, talking about programming handshakes, AI or not, pattern predictors. Code.org has recently added 3 through 5 things. Every one of my kids loves Dance Party. But now we have things on how AI can make decisions and using AI for oceans. We also have things that are done by Google and Gemini that you can use. ISTE created a lot of things. Now, I'm going to be honest, ISTE's lessons are long. They're too long for me to always fit in, but there's some really great idea so I always like to give that caveat that the ISTE lessons are longer. Some other things, if you've never been into the world of Hello Ruby, she does a lot of really, Linda Lucius, I think is her name, does a lot of really great stories teaching kids about technology, but she actually, under the Teach tab here, talks to kids about machine learning. Google's Applied Digital Skills has a lesson where kids get to play with auto draw, quick draw, and translate. There's a great lesson in Teachable, and Day of AI, which is a resource that I have spent a lot of time on. They have lessons for early elementary. They're the only place I could really find great lessons for early elementary. And now I subscribe to them, and I'm always shocked by all the great things that they're sharing. Your Day of AI could be any day. It doesn't just have to be one day. So what I'm going to do for you now, and it's also linked in here, is I'm going to share with you the Padlet. And this is where we're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so because I want to give you a chance to explore. So when you click on this Padlet, one of the things that I want to point out is that this Padlet is always growing. So, oh, that's interesting. I did not see that yet. I'm gonna have to play with that this year. So one of the things you'll see is in this first column, you'll see the UDL and differentiation. You'll see Ludia information in here. So if you want to explore that, this is more from Adobe. And you'll notice I've put a lot of these tools in here so you could actually play directly with them. And then there's those ready to use curriculum. So AI readiness, that AI and EDU, um, you know, there's those lessons there. You have the so Google lessons, but I've also put in here things like a prompt library. Granted, as we get better and better at our AI tools, prompting becomes less of an issue. But this resource has so many amazing things that you can use. And like I said, it's always growing. Every time I find a new resource, I'm like, oh, let's add something new to that. And so, take your time. I'm going to let you pick the next 10 minutes to pick one thing on here. And with this one thing, take about 10 minutes to explore it. So any questions before I give you some time to explore? Okay, well, I'm going to stop talking and let you explore for 10 minutes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to pop up and say something or put it in the chat. You have about 1 more minute left of exploration time. I'm going to start to fold my voice in, and it's like Sheila's reading my mind. I was going to ask if each of you wanted to share what you had been exploring. Let's turn that annoying alarm off. So I think the stuff for ISTE is really interesting. I just wish they had a little shorter lessons. I think it's really hard for at the elementary setting to get in a lesson, some of those lessons that are that long with all of the things that we're required to do by law. It just becomes really challenging. So yep. But 4 to 5 hours is a lot of instructional time. So, but I think
And
there's
for
some
some
great
kids in
ideas.
a 1 day a week program, that's 4 to 5 weeks. And if they miss a week, how do you catch them up?
Right. Well, we have specials for a half an hour, so that's all. That would be like almost a
So
month of
that could be
lessons.
10 weeks.
Yeah, it's just too. It's a lot. So
Too much.
So as we start to put things together, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do as far as the chat goes is I want you to think about how you're going to challenge yourself to unlock the magic of AI in the elementary classroom. So if you could add that to the chat, something that you want to put out there and commit to challenging yourself to do as far as the magic of AI. Yep, I know. Hands on. I almost wonder whether you could put some of those lessons into AI and ask it to adapt it to, different lessons. Ludi is awesome.
So I can share what I'm working on. I've been struggling with this since the middle of the summer. I am doing an 8th grade first ever big research project. So I have
Hmm.
spent the first quarter of school teaching the students all the research skills in Chrome that they might need in order to find what they're looking for. Quotations, keywords,
Hmm.
Boolean expressions, all of that. Now we're ready to jump into actually doing the research. And their content, they get to choose their topic. The content is basically the sustainable development goals, assuming that
Okay.
everybody can find one that they're really invested in. And then how does AI, how might AI help solve that problem
Hmm.
faster, better, more efficiently? Or in what ways, known or unknown, might AI contribute to the problem, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's concerned about electrical use in a server farm, et cetera. And
Yeah.
so I'm looking for the best way possible to scaffold this whole process for kids who've never really done research before. And I've done it in many tools. I've never seen Ludia before, so I'm always happy when I learn something new because that's a hard one.
Awesome.
So I have just asked it to create an outline for me and what I need to do. I need to have from topic to research question, from note taking to embedding quotes and paraphrasing and citing sources to a project outline, a draft, and then deciding on how you want to present your work, a website, a paper, a slide
Uh-huh.
presentation. And that my kids do well with graphic organizers or things where they have to fill in sections as they go. And I'm just reading through it now, but it seems to have done a better job than many of the things I've been working with. And
That's
I've got
awesome.
a basic outline, but I'm excited to look through this and see if I'm coming up with something better.
That's awesome. That's really great.
And they will be using AI next week. Hopefully, we're in Magic School student tool to
Okay.
help them write a better prompt to refocus topic and research question to make their research go as smoothly as possible. So that's their first dive into using an AI tool
Wow.
themselves. And then for some kids, they may go further and use AI to brainstorm an outline for their project
Mhm.
or to, I may use that as one of the accommodations. And I'm
Mm,
not sure.
yeah.
It's growing as I do it.
Um, I think
This
I
looks
think
good.
as far as parents not liking little's learning, I think it's we one of the things we're really clear on in our school is that we use it in programs that we or that don't take their data, and that right now we're not having kids do a lot. Learning about AI and using AI are two different things. We're trying to teach them how it works, versus necessarily like we're supposed to get Gemini 13 plus in our district, but we're not. Our youngest kids, they're mostly using it, at least in the upper elementary, for image generation at this point. And so they're starting to learn, how can I find the bias, and like we're having really good discussions about all of those things. Usually it's January when I start my AI unit with my fourth graders who I see every week. And so we'll be working on that soon, but it's moving so fast. It's kind of exciting to see what we'll have by in another month or two. Who knows? So we have about 3 minutes left. This slide is for feedback. Every time I do a presentation, I do it a little bit differently. And so you have a link to this in your participant handout, but I would love it if you'd give me some feedback. And then in addition to what I do every single day, I do work with schools. So if you're interested in me coming in and supporting your school or your district, please let me know. There's a place for you to put that in. But like I said, I really do look at all of this information and I make changes based on what is said. I'm always learning. And then to kind of just finish things off, you have my name, my email's pretty easy. It's Debbie@tannenbaumtech.com. And you have my website. I also do have a Facebook group. If you do the feedback on the prior slide, you will get a link. You will get all the slides for today. I always give them out afterwards because I want to make sure we're focused on the learning and not necessarily on the slides. And then in addition, you have links to the books and, like I said, my Facebook page. And I know that this is the time of year as we get closer to Thanksgiving that a lot of us are getting tired. So the fact that you came on a Wednesday night to learn really means a lot to me. And we have about 2 more minutes if you have any questions.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gonna leave those links up. I'm gonna grab back the screen.